You guys off with some quick tips on cooking with beef. Our gracious sponsor tonight is the Idaho Beef Council, and they were providing beef for us for several of our recipes this evening. And if you look in your handouts, you should have a handout that says quick dinners with ground beef, and the back of it should say freezer to slow cooker beef dinners. And I'm going to talk about those first three using ground beef, and then I'm going to demo one from the second page, and that's the one we're going to taste test tonight. So you'll get to try out all of our recipes that we're cooking. We used to do this without letting you guys taste it, and that was just mean. So now we let you guys try everything and see if it's something you want to take home and use at home. So those first three recipes, these are some of my standard meals. I do a process that's oftentimes called freezer meals, if any of you guys have heard that before, where you prep the meals ahead of time. You put them in usually kind of a zipper bag, put them in your freezer, and then you're able to pull them out later. So I am the Family Consumer Science Extension Educator, but I am also a rancher's wife and a mother to 3 small children. So oftentimes dinner consists of coming up with something really quick with hamburger. So I wanted to share with you guys some of my favorites and some of my standby meals that I use all the time. I have a Sloppy Joe recipe for you, taco recipe, and a spaghetti sauce. Now those don't really sound like anything all too fabulous, and you're going, I've made tacos before, this is nothing new. But the techniques that I'm going to show you guys can make them into something that's quick and easy and makes it kind of transform some of these simple recipes. So what I like to do when I'm doing my freezer meals, I break the job up into several days because, like I said, I have small kids and I don't have a lot of time to do something all day long. So what I'll do is when I'm getting ready to do freezer meals, on day 1 I will go shopping. So I'll gather my shopping list, see what I have in the pantry, in the freezer, in the refrigerator, fill in any gaps in my recipes, and head to the store. And then on day 2, I will prep all the food. So if I have a lot of onions in my recipes, I will make sure, well, quick time saver is to use my food processor. If I'm going to need a bunch of onions, I'm going to make 6 freezer meals that day, and they all call for a cup of onions. I'm going to use my food processor to prep those. Another quick tip you can use when you're doing that is to use dehydrated chopped onions. That's a quick way to save some time. And you can also purchase pre-chopped garlic if your recipe calls for that, or if you prefer fresh garlic, you can also put that in your food processor. So I'm going to do all my prep I can ahead of time. If I'm pulling meat out of my freezer, I'm going to put that in the fridge to defrost as well, so it's ready to go the next day. And then on day 3 is when I do my cooking. So I'm going to do a method called batch cooking. So I will make all 3 of these hamburger recipes at one time, and I double each of those recipes. So at the end of it, usually if I'm efficient and I've prepped, it takes me about 2 hours to make 6 freezer meals. So what I'll do is I'll take these 3 recipes. Each one calls for a pound of hamburger. So if I'm doubling these recipes, for all 3 of them, I need 6 pounds of ground beef. I'll put my 6 pounds of ground beef in a nice little electric skillet like this. I can usually fit all 6 in here and put the lid on and get that to start cooking, and that frees up my stove for some of my other preparations. There is a skillet as one of our door prizes tonight, so one of you guys might get to take home this handy tool. So once you've got your meat browning, then you are available with your stove to do your other preparations. So my spaghetti sauce, the recipe I included with you guys tonight, it's very simple to do, but it has a real homemade flavor. You could also make your own sauce, cutting up your own tomatoes, but I'm talking quick tips, so this is a handy one to have on. It does do better if it simmers, so I like to make my spaghetti sauce, put it on the stove to simmer while I'm browning my ground beef. Same with my Sloppy Joes. As you can see, super easy. 2 ingredients, maybe 3 if you feel like the chopped onions. My kids love this recipe. It's very fast and it's very efficient, and it's one I use if I'm making a large batch of spaghetti, of Sloppy Joes also, and I'll dump in an extra can of tomato sauce to make it go a little bit farther. It also helps reduce the sugar. Making your tomato sauce from scratch this way can also reduce the salt content and the sugar content, because a lot of jarred spaghetti sauce has a lot of added salt and sugar. You can use that too if you want to speed up the process though, and then it's just a dump and go and you don't have to prep the sauce separately. So I have my beef browning and I have all of these going on the stove. When I finish with my browned beef, I have 6 pounds of it. That's enough for 6 recipes. So I'll take my skillet and I will divide it up into 3 bowls, all that browned hamburger. I'm a little OCD, so I like to take a 1 cup measuring cup and I'll do 1 cup, 1 cup, 1 cup, and then go through until I have it all divided. You can just eyeball it and save time. I just don't like to do Sue thinks that way. So I divide it up into 3 bowls. So I have 1 bowl that's 2 recipes of sloppy joes, 1 bowl that's 2 recipes of spaghetti sauce, and 1 bowl that's 2 recipes of taco seasoning. So then I add either the taco seasoning or the sauces to those bowls and stir them up. So I have 6 meals are prepped. So I'll divide each bowl. So my bowl of taco meat, each bowl will go into, half a bowl will go into a Ziploc. So you end up with 2 freezer meals. So make sure before you fill your Ziploc that you put what the item is. Everything looks the same in the freezer. So what the item is, when you made it, and how it should be cooked and prepared. Since you have pre-cooked the hamburger and your sauces, these are easy to defrost in your refrigerator overnight and then just pop into the skillet the next night when you're ready to serve and heat. You don't have to cook them, they've already been cooked. You just have to warm them through. So they're really handy. These nice little Ziplocs are freezer grade. You want to make sure you get the freezer ones, especially for meals when you're adding hot food into it. They hold up a lot better and they stay fresher longer in the freezer. These nice little ones have a flat bottom, so they're easy to fill. I also like to stick mine in like an ice cream bucket, a 1-gallon ice cream bucket, and fold the edges over so then they don't flop around when you're trying to fill them and you keep the edges clean. So you can fill them doing that. Once they are filled, then you are able to just zip them closed, and I lay them flat on a cookie sheet in 1 layer. And I put them in my freezer. Once they've frozen solid, then they're super easy to stack in your freezer and they don't flop all over the place because they're weird shaped. So it's nice to lay them flat. So that's a really quick and easy way that you can prep 6 dinners in about 2 hours. So it's really efficient. Whenever I do this, I also like to do some dump and go meals, which is what I'm going to show you. That's the second side of your handout, where these freezer to slow cooker beef dishes. Now, like I said, I'm a rancher's wife. We don't often get those nice animals that come through that have been finished fed, like Sarah's prime rib that she's going to demonstrate tonight. I get a lot of hamburger and a lot of stew meat. So I wanted to give you guys another option for stew meat. So the next 2 recipes, you can use stew meat, and the beef stroganoff, you can also use burger, which is what we're going to use tonight. So I'm going to demonstrate. These are simple, super easy to go meals. These are what we call dump and goes. So whenever I do freezer meals, I always do a couple of dump and goes because they're quick and easy to do. You don't have to brown the meat ahead of time. If you want to make it a heat and serve meal like the other one, you would. But if you're planning on putting this in your slow cooker, you do not have to cook the meat. So very simple. This is why it's called dump and go. You'll add your ground beef, and then you just add your other ingredients. So I have my water, and I have my onion soup mix, and my chopped garlic, and this, I always like to buy my garlic pre-chopped. It just saves me a lot of time. My Worcestershire sauce, my chopped onions, and I was making this recipe 3 times, so I went ahead and ran a bunch of onions through my food processor. My sour cream, this one always sticks. And of course, if you're not putting these in individual bowls, you can save a lot of dishes too with these dump and go meals. And then my cream of mushroom soup. And that's 2 cans of cream of mushroom soup. Now the recipe also optionally calls for diced mushrooms. I don't like mushrooms, so I don't include them in this meal when I make it for my family, but you certainly can. Now I'm going to squeeze a little bit of the air out, and I'm just going to mix this up. Now, it's also important because these meals are not just served on their own, you got to make sure you have your extra supplies. So you can shred some cheese, pop it in the freezer, make sure you buy some buns, pop them in the freezer for your sloppy joes, make sure you have your shells in your freezer, and you can also have dry pasta in the pantry. So when you're ready to use this meal, you can. So this one's now ready for the crock pot. You will put it in the freezer, have it frozen, pop it out, defrost it in your refrigerator overnight, and then put it in your crock pot the next day, and you have dinner ready when you get home. So, does anybody have any questions? I'm going to keep mixing. You do want to get that hamburger spread throughout the bag. No questions?
There's no issues around freezing.
No, because you're cooking it up later in the beef stroganoff, it doesn't really seem to affect it. Because sometimes it'll get watery and yucky if you try to freeze it and then use it fresh, but it doesn't have any problem in the recipe. Any other questions?
Do you have to defrost it, or could you just put it in the crock pot?
Yes, we do recommend you defrost it. Anything else? All right.